Hello, my name's Alyssa. I am the host of Stories and Spoilers, the podcast, and I am so excited because this episode is interviewing an amazing thriller author. I recently did an episode about Cross My Heart. This is for lovers of Gone Girl, You. It's also really, really good because it has dual POV, and I like that because there's like messaging, and there's a heart transplant, there's drama, there's heartbreak, and there may or may not be murder, which is super fun. So not in real life, but in the case of the book, and the book is fun. So without further ado, I want to introduce the author of Cross My Heart, Megan Collins. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. I am so excited to interview you about Cross My Heart. This is a non-spoiler episode, of course. We will not dive into the whodunit of it all, but we will discuss your inspiration behind the book. One line from this book that you see a lot of people referencing on Kindle and like highlighting a lot, and just so much more. So I wanted to ask you, what inspired Cross My Heart?
So this book of all of my books is the one that has sort of been like marinating in me for the longest.
Mm,
And it really started in like 2008, I think, which was when I saw this article about this woman whose husband had passed away and that he had donated his heart. And so she connected with the man who got her husband's heart, and they developed like this really beautiful relationship. It wasn't a romantic relationship or anything, but it was just this really beautiful friendship. And I
mm,
was so drawn to that, and just thinking about how that is such a unique connection that most people will never have in their life. And I imagine it's also like really emotionally fraught and complicated. And so I actually started writing kind of inspired by that, what would be like like a straight up love story, kind of the same thing, but those people fall in love. And I wrote like 3 pages of it, and then I got bored, and I was like, okay, I'm done with this. Because that was back in the days when I was still trying to figure out like what exactly I wanted to write. And but that story of those two people connected by a heart transplant just kind of stayed with me for through different books that I was writing. I would keep going back to it and think about how that was so interesting, and it just felt like there was a book there. And then when my debut novel, The Winter Sister, was published, that was a thriller, and so I was now in this like thriller space, and I still like would think about it. And at some point, I had sort of this kind of like lightning bolt idea of how I could twist it to be a thriller, instead of like a love story. And that would be what the premise is now, which is that a heart transplant recipient becomes romantically obsessed with her donor's husband, even as rumors are swirling that he might have done something to his wife. And so once I knew that, pretty soon after, or not pretty soon, but like sometime after that, I figured out what I wanted the midpoint of the book to be. And for anyone who's read the book, you know that the midpoint is very important and kind of changes everything. And once I knew that, I was like, oh, that's really cool. And I kind of was just like, that's really cool. I don't know if like I can do it. Like I sort of questioned and doubted myself that I had the writing chops to pull it off. Um, and I was just like, I wish some other writer would write it so I could read it. But then at a certain point, I needed to present kind of propose the next thing to my publisher. And I was like, well, I guess I have this on the back burner. And then, so kind of out of necessity, I figured it out and like how I would do it. And that became sort of a lesson to me of like, don't be the one who says no to your own ideas, and to like,
mm.
and to believe that, if you're smart enough to have the idea, you're smart enough to figure out how to execute the idea. So yeah, so it's been this really long journey from 2008 until when I actually started drafting it in 2023. But I think it needed to kind of simmer for that long because it I needed to live certain experiences and witness certain things in order to make it the book that it became.
I was really curious about kind of how you developed the story because, for listeners out there who haven't heard of Cross My Heart, the best way that I could describe it in 3 words is miscommunication, reciprocation, and pain. That is the
Mm.
best way I can describe it.
Hmm.
Miscommunication, because a lot of the elements of the story are related to people having deep emotions for someone else.
Hmm.
And that emotion, like, oh, I'm in love with you, that the other person had no idea you felt that way. Or their perception of love is pretty twisted.
Hmm.
And then you have pain because obviously there is a murder mystery kind of interlinked between the story. There's mental health situations going on, and this pain of being misunderstood within your community. And the reciprocation, of course, because what is love without reciprocation?
Hmm.
My mom has a saying where she says, everything is cute when it's reciprocated. And it
Mm.
gets creepy when it's not. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh, yeah. She was like, think about it. If someone's outside of your home with flowers, it's cute if you're in love.
Hmm.
If you're not in love, it's stalkery, it's creepy,
Yep.
it's not wanted. So we follow the main character as she's experiencing a heartbreak after her boyfriend or fiance leaves her at the altar, and she works at a like a dress shop, like a bridal shop, which is like twisting the knife. As the
Hmm.
author, you were like, I want it's important. You're like, it's important for this to happen. Long
Yeah.
story short, she ends up having a health issue post the breakup, and she has to get a heart transplant pretty quickly. She does, but it turns out the heart is from a famous author in town's wife who passed away mysteriously. And everyone's like, he's super hot, but also, is he the murderer? And
Mm.
he's like, I'm not the murderer. And the police were like, we don't have the proof that he's the murderer. So we're going to leave it alone. And the main character is like, well, I'm just going to like message the person who, whether the relative of the person who donated the heart. And she has an idea that it may be the hot husband, AKA maybe the murderer, maybe. And he messages her back, and things go from cute to strange. And I will leave it at that. It is so, so good. And my follow up question for you is, what makes a good thriller, in your opinion? Because you
Um,
wrote a great thriller.
Thank you. So I think for me, it's three things. One, a premise that I haven't heard before, or
Mm.
a new angle on a familiar premise. Two, like just masterful plotting and tension so that it is totally propulsive and page turning. And then three, writing that I want to savor. So I really love when I'm torn between speeding through a book because I want to see what happens and slowing down so that I can just like bask in the beauty of the language of the book.
Mhm.
And then in addition to that, so I guess the fourth thing would be some kind of like emotional truth that's being mined in the story and that the plot is helping to deliver in a powerful way.
Ooh, I love that. Bouncing off a little bit of what you said, what thrillers sparked your interest in writing this story? Were there any books that kind of like made you think like, ooh, I want to take a little bit of that. I want to take a little bit of
Mhm.
this.
I'm not sure if there are like specific ones that I can point to, but I know that I was definitely feeling inspired by different books that will take kind of add in different media into the like sort of a mixed
Mm.
media approach to telling the story. Whether that's they have like excerpts of a podcast or um, emails back and forth or whatever it is. Like as just an example, Janice, I'm not sure if it's Hallett or Hallett, but she exclusively writes books that are always these fantastic mysteries that are told in some kind of really interesting, it's not really a lot of times mixed media. It's usually one kind of media. Like one book is told completely through voice memos. One book is told completely through emails back and forth between these people in a theater group where something went
Ooh.
terribly wrong. Um, and so I'm really inspired by that and like what are the textures that you can bring to a thriller that's not just straight narrative. And you mentioned kind of the messages in the book and that was where I really started to play with that for this. And so there, and this actually came into the book also because I discovered that there is like this real thing. I think it's called donor alliance, where people can communicate with the person who received their like loved one's organ or vice versa. And it's all done anonymously unless you like agree that you want to know details so that you can maybe meet up or talk more on the phone or
Mhm.
whatever. And so when I found out that existed, that plus that kind of just general inspiration of like what are other ways to tell a thriller story that isn't just narrative, that kind of came together and became in my book Donor Connect, which is the service that Rosie uses to contact Morgan Thorne, who she should not know that he is the husband of her heart donor. She should not know who her donor is, but because she's got like friends in the right places, she has pretty much figured it out and then is able to confirm it just with some details he gives. So we see their messages back and forth to each other. And then we also see Morgan's emails to his best friend Blair recounting not the messages he's having with Rosie on Donor Connect, but about how he's met this woman, Rosie, in person and they're sort of starting to date. And he has no idea that the person he's messaging on Donor Connect is also Rosie because it's all anonymous. And so I really loved being able to play with that it as both like a structural element, but also we see Morgan from two sides. We see the Morgan that he presents to Rosie in his messages to her through Donor Connect. And then we also see how Morgan talks to his best friend. And obviously, when you're talking to your best friend versus a stranger, there's always going to be a difference there. But there are
Mhm.
some things that he will say that are kind of different from what he said to Rosie. And we start to see some discrepancies so that the reader can kind of be like, well, wait a minute, that's kind of suspicious.
Mhm.
And just to kind of build that in addition to the things that Rosie herself is discovering about this man. So yeah, that ended up being a really fun element to play with in the book.
I absolutely love that because while reading this book, for listeners, I am not spoiling it once, of course. If
Mhm.
you want to hear spoilers, if you want to hear like all my in-depth thoughts, that episode is on YouTube and Spotify. But I wanted to reference that the way that you utilize social media, emails, and then the Donor Connect system in this book was part of what drew me in for
Mm.
it. There's something about like if you have a public account or if you have features where you look up like blonde book blogger, you know what I mean? Or you look up a certain coffee shop and you know that
Hmm.
person goes to the coffee shop quite a bit. It goes from being like very cute to like, oh, I just want to like I want the opportunity to meet them
Hmm.
versus like I am pre-planning our meet cute. Is it
Yep.
still a meet cute if I planned it before we met? Like, um, it also I like how you referenced Morgan, the husband, and the way that he talks to his best friend versus the way that he talks to Rosie. I felt like his language with Rosie was a lot more poetic and a lot more like soft. And then the way
Hmm.
he spoke with Morgan, his best friend of like way, way back, is a lot more like I couldn't help but feel like he was aware he was good looking, he was aware he was successful, he was a little bit more cocky.
Hmm.
And like he knew he's like, I'm a writer, I'm super smart. And he would email her these long emails even though she didn't want him to.
Hmm.
And it was that was one of the best things in a thriller is like, why don't you like this about this character? Or what is it about this character that makes you feel off? Like
Yeah.
unpacking that as the reader, but also asking, is the author purposefully like leaving breadcrumbs to make me dislike this person?
Hmm.
It was so interesting. And one of my questions for you is this novel has an element of writing messages between two main
Hmm.
characters and side characters. How does social media play a role in this book for you? Specifically, like, do you find social media like meet cutes and such cute? Or do you think they can get a little bit creepy? Like Joe from you.
Yeah. I mean, I think it really depends on the person and the people and the situation, but I just think it's really like it's so easy with the way social media is to form sort of parasocial relationships
Mm-hmm.
and to think that you really know someone when you don't know them at all, or to feel like you have a connection with them when they've never even heard your name.
Yeah.
Um, and so I wanted to play with that too. Like there's so many details that Rosie knows about Morgan before they ever communicate on Donor Connect for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And it like it is, that is creepy, but it's also like who amongst us has not like stalked someone online, Like
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
interested in someone, whether it's romantic or just like as a person.
Mm-hmm.
And going on social media is a great way to kind of see what this person is all about. So, and that was kind of a thing that I was doing with Rosie the whole time, like trying to walk this line of making her relatable and making her do things that maybe we've all done, but maybe just like turned up a couple notches.
Mm.
So, like, where is she relatable and where does that tip over into crossing that line and being like, okay, wait now, don't do that. Like, I wanted a
Yeah.
lot of times for people to just kind of have this sort of like, oh, Rosie reaction to her, but in kind of like a lovable way. And what I
Mm-hmm.
really love is when I hear pe readers say to me that they were torn between shaking her and giving her a hug. And that is like
Yeah.
exactly what I wanted. I wanted her to be like a character that you're rooting for, but like it's not always the easiest to root for her because of she's just like, kind of impulsive and following her heart to a fault.
Mm.
And yeah, so I think that social media plays a big role in that because it sort of feeds in all of us this delusion or illusion that we have these connections that aren't actually that strong.
100%. And be it that Morgan's character previously was a famous author, a
Mhm.
lot of people already knew who he was. Is based on the back of books. It wasn't hard to find him. But
Yeah.
did she cross lines at certain points? I do think she did.
Mhm.
I'm not. He's no saint. Nobody
Yeah.
in this book is really a saint.
Right.
And I really liked how you developed that as well. Morgan's best friend seems very distant as we
Hmm.
begin the book versus Rosie's best friend, who I imagined as the girl from To All the Boys I Loved Before,
Mm.
Lana Condor. That's who I imagined her as in my mind. She's a nurse. She is deeply passionate about being there for Rosie. She's in her own relationship, but it does reference in the book, which I love that you did this, that their friendship was just as important to Rosie as like her romantic relationships. She
Hmm.
didn't stop caring for her friend, and her best friend was there for her through every heartbreak. And she was giving it to her straight. She was very, very
Yep.
honest of the entire book. I was like, she was the voice of reason for us readers
Yeah.
in my mind. Whenever I was
Yeah.
like, Rosie, don't do that, her best friend would be like, why are you doing this? Like,
Yeah.
I was like, thank you, girl. Somebody's
A
got to tell her.
Yeah, a character like Rosie needs a character like Nina who's going to be like, now wait a minute. And
Yeah.
also I wanted there to be like an outlet for readers' reactions when
Mm,
they were feeling like that's not what we should be thinking or doing right now. I
yeah.
wanted there to be someone telling Rosie that so that I feel like when that happens to me when I'm reading something and I'm like, now wait a minute, and I kind of wonder something, as long as a character kind of wonders it too or brings it
Mhm.
up and acknowledges it, then I'm like, oh, okay, and I'm satisfied and I can keep going. But when things like go unsaid like that or
Yeah.
just don't go addressed, I'm like, well, is this just bad, like plotting bad, like,
Mm.
or am I missing something? Is there a plot hole here? So it was just like Nina is serving like kind of as the reader stand-in in that case.
I love that because I deeply related to Nina at multiple points, and my biggest heartbreak in the book wasn't even with a love interest.
Hmm.
It was between a miscommunication between friends,
Hmm.
and just that sense of like, am I going to lose this friendship? Because you just want acceptance.
Hmm.
Also, like female friendships were really important in this story, and this perception of like comparison. I loved how you did that. This sense of like, there's a character in the book who's deceased, and they're deceased at the beginning of the story, and there are multiple points in the book where people were talking about how she looked. They're
Hmm.
talking about how smart she was, about her abilities, and I was just sitting here and I'm like, why does it feel like you're jealous? Like, why does it feel
Hmm.
like you're jealous of someone you didn't even know? Like, you don't know what this person was going through. Everything they knew about this person was secondhand.
Hmm.
And at the end of the story, it hit me. I'm like, even though this person's husband and the killer and a lot of other people in the story are like, this person was like this and this, and she was A, B, and C. I was like, the spooky part of this thriller is that we'll never really know, like, what
Hmm.
was true and what was just comparison and jealousy, and how love like twisted people's perceptions of each other.
Yeah.
Friendship love, romantic love, lust, like a lot of things. I was like, ooh, cross my heart. Even the title implying like, I swear,
Hmm.
even the like the literal sense of like someone having heart issues. There were so many points in the book I'm like, if she doesn't get killed, she's gonna have a heart attack. Like, and you did bring that up throughout the book as well. You were like, at any point, her heart could give out, or
Yep.
it was that sense of like she doesn't have a lot of time, which makes
Hmm.
sense why she wants love so badly,
Yeah.
because she feels like she doesn't have a lot of time.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I cared for her. I just wanted to protect her. And I did want to ask you as well, what was your favorite part about writing this story?
I think um I think writing, like figuring out Rosie was my favorite part ultimately, even though it was such a challenge. Like when I first, like the first draft of it, which I sent to my editor, I sent her the first half. And, we had talked like Rosie is this really obsessive person. She's like kind of going crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But I had been really scared because I kept hearing like potential readers' voices in my head being like, "Oh, I hate her. She's so annoying." And so I was really scared to kind of go there with her. And so when my editor gave me feedback, she's like, "She's not coming off as like that obsessive. Like she just seems kind of normal." And she's like, "You
Oh.
need to like go there more." And I was like, "I know, but I have your voice in my head too, telling me that like the main character has to be relatable." And she was like, "Okay, don't listen to any voices, no potential readers, just make her who she needs to be," which was great
Mm-hmm.
feedback because once I did kind of let go of that, I was able to then figure out, okay, what I do still need to make her relatable. So how do I make her relatable, but also make her go in different directions and do certain things that the reader wouldn't necessarily do, which is
Mm-hmm.
actually kind of the fun, I think, of reading a character like her because it's almost this like you get to live vicariously like we would tamp down those impulses, but
Yeah.
she just doesn't. So yeah, so I think figuring her out finally was the most fun part. And then once I did, I just felt like I knew her so well, and I just didn't want to leave being Rosie or like inhabiting her voice. So yeah, so it was the hardest and the most fun, I think.
That is so cool that you were able to build a character where it's like it's all fun and games until you consider that a story can only go so far if the character is brave enough to open that creepy dark door, if they're
Hmm.
brave enough to go on that date with that hot guy, something's off. Like, we need to know what happens if they take that other path. And I
Yeah.
think it was cool how Rosie had good intentions. She did. She had good intentions.
Hmm.
And I was like, ooh, what's going to happen? Who
Hmm.
is her heart going to take her out? Is the killer going to take her out? Can the hottie guy with the beautiful house, is he going to take her out? Like, which thing is going to get her? And I didn't want her to get taken out, but in the back of my mind I was like, is she aware how creepy this looks? 'Cause there has to be some alarms going off.
Hmm.
But it was nice that like she just kept thinking about like the frame, the pic. There's a wall of picture frames of like her family, and there's references to just the heart of a family. Like the character who it passes away in the story had a sister. Something horrible happened to the sister, and we're wondering, is this connected to current events? And
Hmm.
then we also have the main character who has this like wall of family pictures. I imagine them as like that collage of pictures, and
Mm.
she just wants a photo of herself married, of herself having kids. And I think anyone can relate to that feeling that you created of just wanting to be normal, or like wanting to have certain big life moments like getting married or finding love or traveling to
Hmm.
certain places. Like, I think everyone wants like those picturesque big life moments. And I
Yeah.
like that you built that off of her. You gave her a heart. She wasn't just like seeking love. Like I don't care who it is. She did care, and I liked that you did that. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And she's very much a product of like the way she's grown up. Like her parents own a
Mm-hmm.
bridal shop. Like so she's been around this her whole life. Her parents have this beautiful relationship and they still hold hands while they watch TV at night.
Mm-hmm.
And her sister got married pretty young and Rosie's young, she's 30, but she has, and her best friend also found like her soulmate really young.
Mm-hmm.
So she's like been seeing everybody get their happy ending, and her relationships just keep ending in disaster.
Yeah.
And so like she just has this added pressure, I feel like I also need to find somebody because being single in a world where everybody's coupled up is really hard. Um and yeah, the added pressure of and this was something I found out in my research on heart transplants that like a lot of times well, most of the time heart transplants only last like 15 years or so at most. And so she knows like this heart isn't going to last her for the rest of her life, or
Mm-hmm.
it might if she can't get another one, and that's the end of her life. And so, yeah, it puts that ticking clock on it, and there's more urgency. So it's not like, oh, I can just take my time and find, wait to see who I'll find. It's more like she needs to orchestrate that meet cute. She needs to make this happen now so that she can live the life that she sees other people living.
Mhm. And that did kind of give this like ticking clock element.
Mhm.
We all only live so like you're not gonna live forever.
Right.
But it's nice to have this perception of like, no, this person actively knows like they only have so much time.
Hmm.
I also will say that there is a detective in this story. I'm not spoiling anything, but there's a detective in this story who I imagined as the guy who played Jesse from Gilmore Girls.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
from This Is Us, that like the dad. I imagined
Hmm.
him as a detective because I was like, man, he's trying to like pin this crime on her. Like he thinks that because she's always there. But in the back of
Hmm.
my mind, I'm like, is he being really nice to her? Or is it just me? Like, and I was like, So I liked how you also linked Rosie's past in high school, how she witnessed certain things. She was always kind to people,
Hmm.
and like even before the heart stuff happened, like she gives like I think she gives like she brought like muffins or like croissants to a library to interview someone about the crime, and she ends up giving the food to a homeless person, and I
Hmm.
was just like. Dang, this girl is amazing. Like, come on. Like, someone has to see how wonderful she is. So I liked how you developed a character that on one hand just wants love and on the other hand is has tendencies that could be described as unhinged,
Yeah.
so without context, and I was like, yeah, let's give her some grace here. I also wanted to ask you which character was the easiest to write for you and which character was the hardest to write for you and why.
Hmm. I think surprisingly, Morgan was the easiest to write for me, even though I would think that he might be the hardest because since I was writing emails from him and donor connect messages from him, I was always writing like in his first person point of view. So I had,
Mm-hmm.
as a woman, had to inhabit that male point of view. And so normally that would be a challenge, but I just like knew that I knew what his flaws were from the start and that they were inspired by like a lot of things that sometimes men do that I just really do not like.
Ooh.
And so like I was able to channel a lot of that like anger and frustration about those kinds of things. And I don't want to say what they are which would spoil it,
Understood.
into him. And so his voice just kind of came really easily to me because of that, even though I don't typically write from a male point of view. So yeah, I think he was the easiest, and yeah, I think Rosie was still the hardest, but like I said before, the most fun because it was once I had figured out her out, I was like, oh, I love this girl, even though she has problems.
Okay. Oh, I love it. I also wanted to ask you, what do you want to tell listeners about your book, and what would you like them to keep in mind while reading Cross My Heart?
So I feel like the big themes of the book are set up in the dedication to the book. which is it's for anyone who relates to The Prophecy by Taylor Swift, and
Mhm.
for any woman who's ever been called crazy by someone she loves. And so, The Prophecy by Taylor Swift, if people haven't heard it, it's a song about um, thinking that you finally found the one, you finally found the relationship that's going to last, and then it falls apart again, and you're right back where you started. And that cycle of that always happening and feeling like there's never a way out of that. And so that is definitely like that's where Rosie is at the beginning of this book. And she feels like she has to have someone to be whole in a way. And so part of her journey is about realizing like she's already a whole person on her own. And that's I don't think that's a spoiler. I mean, I think that once we see the kind of person she is, we're like, okay, we see where you need to get to.
Absolutely.
And also the second half of that dedication for any woman who's ever been called crazy by someone she loves, I really wanted to examine that label of crazy that is too often and too quickly and too easily applied to women where it is not applied to men. And I think that with the exception of some politicians, I don't think that we like call men crazy that much. I think it's so we see a woman just acting like showing her emotions a lot of times and she's crazy. But when men are angry or whatever it is and showing like their rage or anything, like they're not crazy. Like they're angry and they have the right to that. Whereas like a woman just existing a lot of times, like there can somehow be some accusation of crazy. And so I wanted to look at that and also like the the ways we can often feel like we are crazy because our reality is not matching up with what people are saying is happening. And so there's all of that in the book, and that's why I chose that dedication. So it would kind of set the reader up for like these are kind of the things that we're going to be grappling with in this book.
I did also want to reference that I'm also a Swiftie. I was getting the vibes that you were a Swiftie when I was reading
Yeah.
this book. So I absolutely love that. This element of people being too much,
Hmm.
where it's like, there is a person in this book who breaks Rosie's heart and they end up pulling her back into the fold for really messed up reasons at one point. And as the reader, I was like, oh no, I could
Hmm.
tell. As someone who's had their heart broken, of course, as someone who's dated the wrong people who weren't super nice, like I I look back and I'm like, oh, I should have known that person like was not
Hmm.
the best to me. When we read certain flashbacks in the story and we hear what Rosie experienced and why she is the way she is, and the way her best friend would show up for her, it just made me feel like female friendships are just friendship in general is so important to
Hmm.
have someone who really knows you, knows why you do what you do, understands what you've been through. The real love story and a lot of elements of this book to me was the friendships around her.
Hmm.
Like she saved herself in so many ways, but I feel like she also had someone who cared enough about her who was like, tell me where you're going, just tell me where
Hmm.
you're going. I don't care if it's like with that crappy guy. Like I want to
Hmm.
know in case something happens. So if you need me, I will be there. And it's just like it was so amazing to finally see in a thriller where it's like if you're gonna go to the creepy house, at least tell your best friend you're going to the creepy house. They may not
Hmm.
agree with you, but at least have someone to call 911 if necessary. So I
Yeah.
was like, that's important. I also wanted to ask, what was one line from this book that you wanted to share with the listeners that you really enjoyed writing or that you found that readers reference a lot when they talk to you?
Yeah, I the most popular highlight from Kindle for this book is the line and don't know what page it's on, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
But it's all I can say is the beginning was so blindingly beautiful, it kept me from seeing the end. And that's her describing to Morgan her last relationship that ended
Mm,
and then ended very messily and then in a very like jagged kind of back and forth sort of way. And I felt like that was a really true line when I wrote it, because I think that happens a lot, that like we start relationships and they're so good and magical and all of that. And we think like that can never change. So then when it does, and the person becomes someone we don't recognize, it's like, no, something's just gone wrong here and there, and like I can fix this, and I
Mhm.
can we can get this back to the way it's normally is and the way it is. And it's like, no, what they're showing you now is the normal, and that's the real thing, and the beginning was not the real thing. And so like that felt good for me to write that and to be able to articulate that and clarify that to myself. So I feel really happy that apparently readers are resonating with that line as well. Like that just feels really good that other people seem to, have felt that too.
I made a list of my favorite quotes from your book, and that was one of the quotes I
Oh.
referenced. I meant to mention that earlier. But the last two quotes that I took from your book that I absolutely love, that I do want to highlight now, is there's the truth, what literally happened, and the truth, capital T, what emotionally happened. So much of poetry exists in that capital T.
Mm.
Art. You are an artist.
Thank you.
And it's so good. And the last quote that like really pulled at my heart, um, which was, for some of us, bad love is better than no love at all. And she knows my flaws and chooses me as her friend anyway. And I was just like, oh. For folks who in this who read this story, like the three images I would leave you with to like grab this book ASAP is a wedding dress, the bathroom, and a a computer, an open computer. Those are the three images I would be like, this is the book with no context. Also, uh, pink hair.
Yes.
Those are the four images I would leave you with. But yes, this book is absolutely divine. I hope that everyone reads. Cross my heart. I will link it in the show notes below. I will also link all your social media. But what would you like listeners to know about your book before we end this episode?
Just that I hope that in a lot of ways I wrote this book as the book that I needed when I was in my 20s, which is the time I think when you're starting to see your friends
Mm.
pair off and you might not be. And that can kind of create this feeling like, oh, I'm not meeting certain milestones when I'm supposed to be. And so I wrote this as like a love letter almost to the people going through that. And I hope that people who might need the message of this book are able to get this book, and just that it's, a reminder that you are a whole person. There's no such thing in my mind as like my other half. Like you already are, you're your own other half. You are complete on your own. Um, yeah, and that's really to me what this book is about.
I absolutely love that. Where can everyone find you on social media? How can they find your books?
I am at Megan Collins Writer on Instagram, Threads, and TikTok, and my books are available wherever you get your books. But also,
Awesome.
I have links on my website, megancollins.com.
Brilliant. I will link your website. And I also wanted to ask, what are four images you would want to leave readers with, no context about your book?
Um, a person lit up. Okay, let me backtrack. The image
It's
is clear
okay.
in my head and it's hard to articulate. A lit up window at night and somebody walking around inside is one. Um, Two would be, um, this is similar to what you did, but more specific, buttons on the back of a wedding dress.
Ooh,
Um,
that's good.
Three, um, a knife.
Mhm.
And like a kitchen like chef's knife. And four, did you say three or four?
Four.
Four. And four, a book of poetry.
Ooh. That was so good. Megan, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I cannot wait to read your previous books as well as your next book when that comes out. I will be one of the first people to buy it. Promise that. And thank you everyone for listening. Please like this on YouTube if you can and subscribe. Follow on Spotify. Make a little, there's a little bell at the top where you could press. So it can alert you of all my upcoming episodes. And check out Megan Collins' books, Cross My Heart. It is so good. I hope you enjoy it. And if you want to hear the spoilers, talk that is on the previous episode on Spotify and YouTube. Thank you so much, Megan, for coming on the podcast. You are absolutely wonderful.
Thank
All
you
right,
so much.
bye.